Hi everyone and welcome back to Explore Rock Art. In this video we shall continue learning about these impressive images left behind on different types of rock surfaces across the world. Today we will be focusing on how these images were made and what clues lie hidden within the production process that might help us get closer to understanding the artists involved. You ready? Let's go! Material evidence of a specific human activity. These images are the result of a series of actions and decisions carried out in the past. And by studying and identifying those choices, we can learn and discover a lot about the lives and practices of these intriguing societies that made them. And one of the ways in which we can do this is by paying close attention to the steps involved in the actual elaboration of the images. Now, as we've explored in previous videos, most of the world's rock art can be described as either paintings, often referred to as pictograms, or carvings, often referred to as petroglyphs. Now, the steps behind the elaboration of each one of these techniques are quite different, so we need to address them separately. Let's start with paintings. The first thing to consider when it comes to paintings is how to make the actual paint. In order to do so, we need to find something in nature that can provide color, plus something else that can bring it together and provide the required consistency. In other words, a pigment and a binder. Now, throughout the world and across time, when it came to creating the paint for rock art, the pigment chosen was often a mineral, such as, for example, iron oxides, famed for the bright red and yellow hues. You might have heard of them referred to as ochres, maybe. But in other cases, we have evidence of organic materials such as charcoal being used as the colorant. Now, identifying the pigment chosen for a specific paint can open up a whole bunch of questions. For example, where did they find this pigment? Are the sources nearby, or do the people have to travel long distances to acquire it? Is it a rare resource, or is it abundant in the landscape? As we've discussed in the previous video, the location of a site in relationship with the landscape and its resources can tell us a lot about the time, energy, and dedication behind this art, and can thereby give us hints about the importance or the role these images might have had for the people involved. But it's not enough to just obtain the pigment. We need a binder, something to integrate the powdered color and enable its adherence to the rock. Evidence suggests quite a broad spectrum of options being used across the globe. Some include animal fat, others tree sap, milk, blood, gypsum, even urine, and the truth is, even water works quite well. The recipes for paint are as varied as the societies that made them, but that's what makes it so interesting. Now, once the paint is made, we need to start thinking about the process of application. And we're not going to dive into much detail right now because there's a whole other video coming up in the future on this topic, but we need to understand that learning how or discussing how paint was applied onto the rock can also open up a whole bunch of questions. Did they paint with their hands, or did they require instruments such as brushes or swabs or crayons? We have evidence across the world of all of these options being used. If they required instruments, what did they use to make them? Were the resources rare or abundant? What did they allow the artists to do? Maybe small details, specific details with thin lines. Are thus the paintings a product of a skilled, trained individual? Or anyone within a group could have done it, maybe even a kid. And a very important question. Can we expect to find these artifacts in the archaeological record? This could go on and on and on, and with each one of these questions, we get a step closer to these amazing artists and their wonderful legacy. Carvings are a whole other story. One might, very mistakenly so, think that because no paint or brushes are required to create these images, that this is an easier form of art, maybe less demanding one. Now, let me tell you, getting a clear depiction of a recognizable figure on a rock with nothing but another rock, that is skill, that is dedication, that's time and energy invested. Carvings are images created by extracting parts of the surface of a rock. So one of the things to consider, one of the key things to consider when it comes to understanding the labor investment, the effort required to create or to elaborate these engraved images is how hard that rock actually is. It is an abysmal difference to carve an image on a basalt outcrop than it is on maybe a sandstone. Just like it is different to carve something onto marble than it is to carve it onto a brick. The depth of a motif is also conditioned, or is also subjected to the hardness of the rock. If you have a deeply carved, deeply engraved image made on a softer surface versus a shallow motif on a very hard surface, these might have taken the same amount of time to make, just implied a quite different level of difficulty. To carve an image, you need something harder than the surface rock. Depending on the site and the time period, this means either a harder stone, or in some cases, in more recent millennia, this could also mean metal instruments. And guess what? By studying the grooves left behind, we can actually tell the instruments apart. There are different ways in which we can extract part of the surface to create an image. Now, these techniques include pecking, braiding, incising, and they can tell us about different learned skills, different styles, even different people. Don't worry so much about it, we're going to talk about these techniques further along in the series, but for now remember that we cannot and should not underestimate the complexity behind petroglyphs. Decoding each activity, each decision, obstacle, choice, each journey behind the elaboration of these images can help us get closer, can bring us closer to the truth about the past. It's about letting the archaeological record talk to us, enlighten us, instead of imposing onto it our own assumptions and risk silencing such eloquent history. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do remember to like, share and subscribe, and I hope to see you again so we can continue learning about this wonderful world of rock art.